The boss fight is the ultimate expression of the essence of a video game, at least usually. If a game's got him, it usually spends that telling you exactly what the game is trying to be. And sometimes that means difficult. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 of the hardest recent bosses in video games. Starting off with number 10, it's the Scorpion Lord from Black Myth Wukong. There's 107 bosses in Black Myth Wukong. Let that one settle in. 107. There are enough bosses for like 3 or 4 average games, and almost all of these guys have their own unique movesets. There's not a ton of copy-pasting going on here, like you might expect with 107. The majority of them are not that difficult, though. They're just more fun to fight, but every once in a while there's a boss that comes along that just does not mess around. One of the worst is the Scorpion Lord, a completely optional battle in the secret area of Chapter 3. He doesn't even try to fight you, he's just hanging out, drinking from his gourd. The only way to bait him into a fight is to start smashing his wine jugs, which doesn't paint the healthiest picture of this guy, but whatever. It's one of those fights where you probably go into it cocky, just an optional boss, nothing special here. You just smash his shit and move on like so many other bosses in Wukong. That's like how Wukong is. But here's the thing, the Scorpion's got some sting, he ain't messing around. He is crazy fast, extremely aggressive, and has a pretty meaty health bar to go along with the fact that he can poison you, and he'll combine that with highly damaging attacks. He'll wear you down real quick. Not a nice fella if you deprive him of his alcohol. And I'll just say, there are places to get help for that, sir. In fact, this is an intervention. I broke your wine jugs because I care. Yeah, even as far as bosses in this game go, this guy is relentlessly aggressive. Just try to find a good opportunity to attack him. Good luck. It's pretty difficult. Some of his moves are unpredictable and hard to dodge as well, like when he burrows under the ground and tries to ambush you from below. The timing required to avoid this attack is weirdly tight. That's part of why he's a little more difficult than your usual boss. He's really big, his attacks hit a wider area in general, and that can easily get around your invincibility frames if you dodge while you're standing too close to him. He's really not that gimmicky, he's just really tough. One of those bosses that can bash your head in for hours before finally giving up and resolving to come back later. It's a totally optional fight, so there's nothing to lose if you do want to leave and come back. But walking away doesn't feel good. I tell you what does feel good though is coming back and beating this guy's head in on the first try. That feels nice. At number 9 is Providence from Stellar Blade. The secret final boss of Stellar Blade is noticeably harder than anything else before it. Now, compared to Black Myth, this is an easier game overall. Like, the dodge timing is extremely forgiving. You can pretty much dodge through everything, and parry timing is also on your side. It's a gentler, kinder parry-based combat system, but that doesn't mean it can't get a difficulty spike once in a while. In fact, that's why we're talking about this. There's not really any use explaining what this fight is actually supposed to be. All that matters is that it's a big-ass mech that loves to alternate between hard-hitting melee attacks and unpredictable long-range ones. Super aggressive, fights very differently than most other bosses in this game. The lasers and missiles are especially annoying when you have to deal with them. This is otherwise a boss that mostly plays it fair. It doesn't have a lot of weirdly timed attacks or highly unpredictable strings. There are a few annoying little gotchas, like there's this little jab move he'll sometimes pull out of nowhere, or this energy ball attack that's faster than it looks, but it's not unfair or anything. It's just more challenging than anything else in the game. It's got health, takes a lot of parries to weaken it, and it's just an all-around difficult fight and a satisfying capper to a surprisingly good action game. At number 8 is Star Wars Outlaws, the Rancor. Just because a boss is hard doesn't mean it's good or well-designed or particularly fun to fight. Sure, these days the art of boss fights is a little more refined. More developers understand the do's and don'ts. Unfortunately, somebody working on Star Wars Outlaws didn't get the memo when designing the Rancor-based boss fight, because this thing sucks. You know how every third-person action game in the last 2 decades has some kind of stupid boss where you have to bait it into charging at you so it hits a wall? It's the most played-out boss design ever. It's not even fun at this point. Having to wait around for an enemy to charge is boring, and getting the timing right to properly avoid them and let them hit whatever target the game wants them to hit is frustrating and stupid. What makes the Rancor worse than the average boss like this is that it's huge, so avoiding it's a big old pain, and its arms have just an absurd reach. And of course it can kill you in a single hit because of course, why wouldn't it? That's the easy part too. Things get really annoying when you have to find a way to turn the power on to these conveyors in the ceiling. In any other game, this would be super easy, but here they had to make it annoying as possible by offering zero signposting where the power switch is. So you're just stuck running around like an idiot, swiveling the camera all over the place in a vain attempt to find the switch while avoiding instant death that by design you're not looking at any time. Instead of looking at the rain court in the arena, the game wants you to turn around and stare at the walls, which generally only leads to one thing: a quick death. There's no mid-boss checkpoints either. You do the first part of the fight again and again, and you just hope you don't die. But you probably die because it's designed to kill you. And just to make it more miserable, at certain points enemies will run into the arena and start shooting you at the same time. It's kind of all the crappiest boss gimmicks rolled into a single one. Miserable fight, one of the worst parts of the game by a lot, and very hard. And number 7 is Bale of the Dread from Shadow of the Erd Tree. Can't forget this guy. All the Shadow of the Erd Tree bosses are a step up from the base game, but this guy's special. It's Dragon Boss that fights like a regular boss, and that makes trying to tackle him really tough. He moves like an enemy that's 3 times smaller. Like, he's really fast. He's aggressive. He's got this massive reach that makes avoiding him much harder than it would normally be. At first, just hurting him seems almost impossible. There's no good opportunities to do damage if you're a melee-focused character. Sure, you can swipe at his legs once in a while, but his real weak point is his head. And good luck getting within striking distance without getting wrecked. This guy would easily be one of the hardest dragon bosses in the series, if not for the new throwable weapons you can get in the DLC, which make the fight significantly less difficult, i.e. actually possible for melee users. So he's not the hardest dragon boss. That honor goes to Dark Eater Madur, but he's probably the best dragon boss in the series. The fight's just epic, with Egon shouting his head off like a madman, booming music, the volcano arena. It's one of the most cinematic fights these guys have ever done, and manages to be a tough and satisfying fight all on its own. And number 6 is Megazord versus Dragon Zord in Power Rangers Rita's Rewind. I know you're thinking, oh, it's just a beat 'em up. How hard can it be? Little do you know the misery that is trying to fight this stupid battle with more than one player. By yourself, it sucks. With 2 players, it's hell. I can't imagine trying to do it with 4 people. You might as well just plan on becoming a hermit, because if you try to play this mess with friends or loved ones, it's going to be tragedy. Okay? Friends will become enemies. Girlfriends will leave you. Just acrimony and bitterness all around. That's how bad this fight is. So what makes it uniquely miserable is that it's not your average beat-em-up fight. It's a Megazord battle, which should be a joyful highlight instead of the worst part of the game. It's not even close. Keeping in mind that I played the game before the update, I thought it was a good game. You can see my before you buy. It is better now, but I've already played the game, and I don't know if I'm going to play it again just because this is a little better. So I think it's worth talking about. So it's a Megazord fight. Instead of slapping around monsters with buddies, there's scripted sequences that turn the game into a more confusing version of Punch-Out. The screen's shaking like crazy, you don't really know what's going on, and if you get hit once, you have to pass the controller to the next person, or rather the controller gets passed. I don't know. All these fights are pretty annoying, but the Dragon Zord battle is the worst by a wide margin. There are segments where I'm pretty sure it's impossible not to get hit. He shoots so many projectiles so fast, I don't think it's actually possible to dodge him. Or at least you need inhuman precision. It might as well be impossible. In theory, all you have to do is fill up this meter at the top of the screen by punching your opponent. But good luck even getting a few hits in, because this thing doesn't stay in any place for any length of time. And if it's not spamming projectiles, it's doing weirdly hard to avoid melee attacks. The funny thing is, there's no way to die. You can't lose the fight unless you're willingly turn the game off, but that just goes to show how miserable it is. The footage you're seeing is from 2 experienced gamers, and this is how much we are struggling. Imagine trying to play this with a normal person. It would be pure misery. Out of all the bosses who have been nerfed in 2024, this was the one that needed it the most. And like I said, there is an update. It is better, but man, they designed a game that's more or less like a kid's game. Nobody can lose. So why is the Dragon Zord fight this tough? And number 5 is Mario and Luigi Brothership Reclusa. One more baby game just to round this out a little. Can't just all be Souls bosses, right? By the way, if you want more of those, check the end. I'm going to throw some honorable mentions before signing off. So anyway, Mario and Luigi games tend to have a difficulty curve where they start off real easy, and then the final boss is Nightmare Spawned from Hell. The newest entry of the series, Brothership, follows this age-old tradition. The last boss of this game is rough as hell. He's got some strong Undertale energy. I know I'm not the only one thinking that. The first form's easy. It's more of a tutorial for what's to come. Second form becomes gigantic, and that's when the gloves come off. For one thing, the only way to actually damage the second form is to do this mini game where you're flying up the trunk, avoiding obstacles and shooting fire and ice balls out of the sky. Just watching it doesn't do this fight justice. You have to juggle between avoiding obstacles and the quote-unquote ground. You have to be shooting 2 different kinds of projectiles, require 2 different button presses from the sky. It's tricky. It'll keep your eyes off of either thing for just a second. And you're sent back to the ground to refight these plant guys, and they're not a cakewalk. Your left and right movement speed is just slow enough to make it so that there's multiple moments where you see an obstacle coming, but you just can't move fast enough to avoid it. You get through that in the final form. It's super brutal. It is an RPG, but it does have a more active battle system than you might expect. You do have to avoid taking damage, so there's actually some skill involved if you don't want to die. This guy pulls out the usual BS final boss tricks by having highly damaging, difficult to avoid attacks, while also getting to attack 2 or 3 times in a row. Super unfair, can easily get overwhelming. For a game that's usually pretty easy, the final boss is vicious. And number 4 is Rulers of the Outer Worlds in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The most difficult one's probably the final challenge. It's basically all the bonus fights on Gilgamesh Island rolled into one. 4 rounds of pure pain. You have to fight 2 summons at the same time in order, ending with Gilgamesh. These fights are hard as hell on normal, but to complete this challenge, you're forced into hard mode, and you have to beat them all in one go. It is, without a doubt, the hardest combat challenge in the game, and depending on how good you are, it might be the toughest challenge of the year. Really just depends on how comfortable you are with Rebirth's kind of unusual combat system. The thing that makes it all possible is that at the end of the day, it's an RPG, so you can cheese the hell out of it with the right materia and equipment combinations. Really, that's the best way to do it, because otherwise this is a marathon battle that takes forever. And I mean on normally, and on hard with no access to healing items, things get bad real quick. You don't really have any way to deal with it. It's the ultimate pain in the ass battle. It's barely worth the effort. And I mean, you get the best weapon, but what good does it do when you've already beaten the hardest thing in the game?
Most formidable foe, this realm's bladesman of legend.
Bladesman of legend, huh?
And number 3 is Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree Promise Consort Radon, Consort of Mekhala. The final boss of the DLC is an absolute beast. The only thing that makes him even remotely fair is that at least he has only 1 health bar. It's so big that it might as well be 2, but at least there's no surprise second forms. The second form is so expected. We all saw it coming. It's ridiculously hard, and it is only going to get worse. We knew it. It does. First thing to know about Radon is that the summons are a trap. You might think, this is kind of a raid boss where you fight this guy back like in the main game. But those chumps you call in for backup only make the battle harder. He gets tons of extra health when you summon these guys, and they do not pull their weight. They're a beginner's trap, so do not bring them. His first form is, regular BS. Got tons of attacks, varied hit timing, huge hitboxes with his swords, endless combo strings that make getting a hit nearly impossible. The only real advantage you have is bringing in 1 good spirit summon to distract him so you can stab him in the back. The first form is a pain, but the second form is ridiculous. He's suddenly spamming crazy holy magic all over the place on top of his regular attacks. This one move where he's like teleporting multiple times, like before he actually even does anything, it's totally insane. It's so unfair. I don't know what you're even supposed to do here. There's a lot of people who say that he's the toughest from boss fight. They might be right. He's definitely up there with Melania in terms of difficulty, but missing the completely unfair gimmicks that she has, like healing every time she attacks. He's a little less frustrating, but he makes up for it by being hard as hell. And number 2 is the Great Sage's Broken Shell from Black Myth Wukong. The final boss of Black Myth is an absolute nightmare. Might not necessarily be harder than Radon. He's a hell of a lot more frustrating. What makes this fight so tough is that he can just break the rules whenever he wants. Like, does he feel like deflecting an attack? Yeah, okay, he can just do it. That attack doesn't count. Cool. He can freeze you with magic whenever he feels like it too. You're almost dead, but this last combo could beat him. Sorry, the game decided you're frozen now. You lose. It's ridiculous how unfair this fight is. Sometimes when you're healing, he just takes your gourd away from you. Like, seriously. It only happens once per attempt, and it's a cool, surprising moment the first time it happens. But every other attempt, it stops being funny. It's just really, really annoying. If this was just a story fight, one that's meant to be flashy but not too taxing with all these gimmicks, that would be fine. But no, the fight is super tough, even without all of his tricks. Adding him in makes a challenging boss into a hair-pulling misery battle that you just want to be over. It's a shame because I love the concept behind the fight, but the way it was done, at least back when I played it at launch, it's super annoying. And finally, at number 1, Igong and 9 Souls. If you played this game, you know what I'm talking about. There can be no other number 1 this year. This fight is just a whole other level of difficulty. It's probably harder than Ishin from Sekiro. Like, name another infamously hard boss. And this is up there with them, period. Absolutely. There are no gimmicks, well, excluding the third form, which I will get into. But it's a pure test of skill. Can you parry? Can you do the super parry, which requires unique timing? Are your dodge skills good enough? Well, they better be, because otherwise you're going to die within seconds of this fight starting. And it's got 3 forms if you're going for the good ending. I'm not exaggerating either. Literally seconds after starting this fight, I was dying. Nine Souls is already a challenging game leading up to the last boss, but the final fight is on this other level beyond everything else. It requires Zen-like timing and patience, and the only thing you can do to get there is just die a lot. Listen, I'm not great at action games. It took me an hour to beat this guy, and there are people who beat it on the first try. I don't want to discount that, but this took longer than beating anything in Black Myth or the Elden Ring DLC, like way longer. It's generally tough but fair for the first two forms, but the last one is really something else. They only get one new attack, but it's a hell of an attack. Hard to tell what's even happening the first time you encounter it, and it's just a bunch of wind and suddenly you're dead. This one new attack is so absurdly fast and unpredictable that the only real response is to just panic. Like, learning how to deal with this one move can take hours, because of course you still have to beat the first two forms again to get back there. But don't think I'm overstating things here by saying this is a legendarily hard final boss. It's up there with the hardest bosses of all time. It may be the single hardest boss in an action game. I don't even know. I'm still trying to process it. I did tell you I got some bonuses for you. They're soul stuff. First one's Yellow Long from Black Myth Wukong. The final Dragon Brother, easily the hardest, not gimmicky, super aggressive, lightning damage is brutal, shreds through your health bar. One of those bosses you get kind of lucky the first time. Like, you get him down to a sliver of health, so you think it's going to be easy. But every other attempt, he just destroys you. He really actually doesn't have a lot of health, but he could rip you apart real quick if you're not careful. Next is Erlang, the Sacred Divinity, also from Black Myth Wukong. I've mentioned him before. He's a secret final boss in Black Myth. He's right up there with the Great Sage in difficulty. Might be harder, depending on who you ask. For me personally, he was a little less frustrating because he's mostly fair. He does have a ridiculous amount of attacks and abilities. He switches weapons constantly. Everything does seem to have some kind of unique attack animation. At least he only has one health bar. Erlang's a boss that lives up to his godly status. He's exhilarating and pretty challenging. Last one, though, I want to give a shout out to Mesmer from Shadow of the Erdtree. He's on the box art. Way tough boss fight. You know a boss isn't messing around. The first thing he does is attack you, like the second the fight begins. He's highly aggressive, does tons of damage, and he gets wild in his second form with giant snakes getting incorporated into his attack stings. It's so weird and unpredictable. There's not a lot I really need to say about it. It's just really well made and appropriately challenging. If there was no Radon, this guy'd probably be the toughest boss in the DLC. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter and book me on Cameo at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.